Hello folks, and welcome to our VIPRE email security customer administrator walkthrough. Let's go ahead and log into our account. First thing you'll be greeted with is the dashboard upon logging into your account. A couple things of note here. On the dashboard, you'll notice how many total domains you're currently managing under this account, how many billable users, the amount of total senders, virus detections, and spam detections. It's important to note that you do have a wide variety of options on the dashboard, such as mail flow options that give you full breakdowns of exactly what came through to your account, amount of mail traffic in megabytes. If you have additional products turned on, such as attachment threat protection, you're able to see that on your menu as well. Top inbound recipients by traffic, top outbound recipients by message count, top outbound senders by traffic, top inbound senders, message count, so you can see exactly the email addresses that have been sending, as well as the message count. If you have the phishing protection turned on, you'll see that as well, the amount of clean clicks, warned clicks, and blocked clicks, as well as any packages that have been turned on to this particular product. Scrolling back up to the top, next one down here is going to be your message logging. Message logging in here is going to be able to detect anything that comes through the system, both inbound and outbound, as long as you are configured with outbound settings for the VIPRE email security product. If you see this message here, came through. This was a message that did contain a virus. It did hit our sandbox with our attachment threat detection. If we want to see additional information on that, we can certainly hit the view button. This will give us breakdowns on exactly what we can and cannot see in here, such as the subject, the from, the to, what status it encountered, what the filter picked up on it, and any attachments. We're able to see the HTML messaging. We're able to see the message sourcing, so we can see the direct message. We're able to see any of the SMTP logging actions. And again, if we have ATP turned on, we're able to see those sandbox logs. We're able to easily configure this and add additional options. Hit the gear under columns, and we can add IP, policies, the direction, message ID, delivery, and the server response. We also have a wealth of options here that we can do. We can always refresh this if we're waiting for a message to come in. We can always replay a message. As you note here, this one contained a virus, so obviously this would not be replayable. We would not want to deliver a message to a recipient that contained that category. However, if this was a standard message, yes, you'd be able to redeliver that to the original recipient. If something was caught in the overall top-level quarantine, you could release it here. You could add it to the top-level allow or deny, or you could report something that we would consider a false positive or false negative. You can also export this as well. Moving down to the allow and deny, clicking on the allow list will allow you to see the top level global allow list. As you can see, we have 2 entries on here. We can delete any of these. We can import, and we can export. We have the ability to search in here and easily add an additional IP, domain, or user to this list. If we're searching for individual users, go over to the user list and you can search for any of those users. Bring up the individual user, we can then see anything that will be listed on their allow or deny listing. Moving down to the policies tab, we have the ability to create disclaimers with the VIPRE email security product, both on the inbound and outbound side. We can do it with text or HTML. Next tab down here is the enforced TLS. VIPRE email security will always try to do opportunistic TLS upon delivery. However, there are many scenarios where you'd like to be able to enforce that, and we can support that both on the inbound and outbound side. You can set up any of the particular options and configurations, and you can test them once you've set them up. We support large file handling. You can enable this for inbound and outbound. You can do up to 200 megabyte attachments. What this is going to do is detach it. It will then deliver it with a link at the bottom that person can then retrieve that large file. You can store the attachments for up to 7 days. You can control the maximum amount of downloads. You can also change the default template of what the individual end user would see based off of that. Moving down to the next one here would be your advanced policies. Advanced policies are extremely important. You're going to be able to configure and create some advanced policies to be able to block, deny, allow certain files and configurations. Let's go ahead and click the Create Policy. We must give the policy a name. What it applies to is that incoming or outgoing messages. Is it enabled? Or maybe you're setting it up and going to be enabling it later. Is it enabled for all domains? All domains except. All groups. All mailboxes except specific domains, specific groups, or specified mailboxes. Clicking on the rule set, you can see you have a wide variety of options to be able to configure in here. Anything from the subject, the to, message content, message size, body size, attachment content types, TLS versions. You can see there's a wide variety of options. Extremely configurable rule set to be able to do almost anything you need to accomplish. Under the contains option, you can see there's a wide variety of options in here, not just is or is not. You of course can do things from regular expressions, you can do matches items from particular listing, which we'll take a look at the data list shortly, begins and ends with, so a lot of configuration. Then of course, once you do that, you can add additional layers. You can have the end option and continue to add. Under the Advanced tab here, you can even do more configuration. Matches all the rules specified below. You can have it match specified rules below. You can match it when the total points equals or exceeds a certain amount. So there's a lot of additional configuration you can do under the Advanced. Moving down to the Actions tab, you can see you have a wide variety of options down here as well, what to do once you've detected your particular criteria. We can add subject line tabs, we can deliver the message to stop, we can detach and store if we detect certain file types, we can forward a copy to, we can notify using the template system that we saw earlier, we can quarantine and stop that message, we can remove the message header information, we can send it to the sandbox if we are using the ATP, we can set up to strip attachments. So again, a wide variety of options. We just go ahead and select an option here, hit the add. We can continue to add additional action types. Once we do that, hit the add once again, and then of course you can move around based off how you want those actions taken. When you're done, simply hit create policy. And this will go ahead and create that policy for you. You can make a decision whether you want that enabled or disabled. You can see that we can do that easily. And then you're able to build those policies as needed. You can also do that on the outbound side as well. As you can see here, if you have the encryption service turned on, there are several options to be able to set up and configure your encryption. Moving down to the template section, this is where you can create custom templates that you can call to, utilizing the advanced policies. You simply hit box here, add a name, hit the plus button, and then you're able to bring your own templates and add them into the system. As mentioned earlier when we were taking a look at the advanced policies, you can create your own data lists. We provided a wealth of options here for you, such as archive file extension lists, we have video extension, we have available options. You can certainly, of course, build your own as well. So putting a name, hitting the plus key, will allow you to create your own. You can click on it here, hit the modify, and feel free to add anything in here. As we mentioned earlier, we're capable of taking lists of names, file types, regular expressions, and can be all executed utilizing the powerful tools in the advanced policies. Coming down to the service settings tab, you're going to see several add-on features in here as well, such as the encryption configuration, the ATP configuration, the add-on for archiving, as well as the add-on for phishing protection. If you are interested in these additional add-on modules, there are individual training walkthroughs for each of those. Certainly feel free to request that from your account manager or your sales manager. Moving down to the next tab here would be the quarantine report. The quarantine report here can be edited. If you notice here, you do have a wealth of options to be able to what to show to the individual end users, such as the show, the release, the allow, and deny. You have the ability to control exactly what the end users see in their box, such as low scored spam, medium scored spam, or high scored spam. Setting it to the medium option here will show both low and medium within the confines of their daily quarantine. You have the option to allow automatic login for the end user portal. And of course, you can adjust individual delivery times. You notice by default it's set to daily. You can deliver up to 7 times a week, up to 24 times a day. Moving down to the filtering tab, you have the option to enable or disable bulk mail detection. It's an important note on bulk mail that it doesn't necessarily have to be scored as malicious content. We could be talking simply newsletters, which can be annoying to some end users and administrators, so you certainly have the ability to turn on and off that feature. You have the ability to quarantine at an SPF failure. You have your choice of a hard fail or hard and soft fail. You can quarantine based off of deacon failures as well. And you can enable and disable VIPRE email security's impersonation protection. You also can enable or disable user level override. It is an important note, allowing end users the ability to do user level override means they do need to configure each and everything on their side. It's also important to note they could create their own filters. So unless you do have power users, it would not be a recommended suggested setting. You can add report messaging to inbound messages, and you can also control your user auto creation from here as well. Inbound routing is where you would configure your settings for your delivery so the VIPRE email security product can retrieve your mail and do your inbound filtering for you. You have the ability to add additional sites, so hitting add site, give it a description, decide if that's going to be the new default site. If not, leave that unchecked. Hit the plus button. You can add new domains or IPs here, decide your port, and decide your priority. When done, click the checkbox here, then hit the save button. Moving down to outbound relay, this is where if you want to set up outbound for your VIPRE email security product, it is recommended on several fronts. You have the ability to go ahead and add additional IP addresses, hit the plus button here, give it a name, the appropriate IP. You can certainly provide an external email address. You can set up your outbound decom signing here as well if you wish to set up and configure that. Coming down to your LDAP, this is if you're going to be pulling users from your on-premise mail server. You click Enable LDAP, put your host, your username, your password, as well as your base DN. You can test your settings once you've done that, and you can set up a synchronized mail. You can also do exceptions, additions, and what to do upon user conflict. General templates here can be built out, so you provide a particular email address, a logo, and you can build out template headers and footers as well. Moving down to the Domains tab, this is where you can add additional domains within the product. Simply come up, hit the plus button, put your domain in here, how you'd like to validate your users via SMTP, via user list /LDAP, or do not verify. You also have the ability to assign the default site at this time, and you also have the ability to do primary domain or make that an alias domain. Once you've done that configuration, hit the save button. Coming down to your users tab, clicking on your users. This will allow you to view your users within your account, see what services they have, how was it added, manually or automatic, if they receive a quarantine. You can do mass updating in here, simply checking the box here, and you can make actions on all of these options, such as exporting, adding to a specific group. Hitting the drop down here, you're able to enable or disable quarantine reports across the board, deleting in mass. To add a user, come over, hit the plus key, add that user into the system, select their password. We do provide a random password system. You can provide a first name and last name. You can assign it to groups at this point, any additional add-on services, and decide if it's going to be a distribution list on server. If you wish to add additional content, hit that. And of course, you could provide additional name, phone number information for that particular user. You have numerous ways to import users into the product, such as the CSV import. We do provide the sample. This is very important for configuring and getting your users and aliases into the system. This is where you can upload it. You can also paste the CSV data in here as well. You also have an import history tab to be able to see last import of CSVs. You can also configure user groups in here as well. Again, very similar to adding users. Hit the plus key, give it a name, give it a description, hit the save key. You've created that initial group bucket. Coming down to the admin tab, clicking on admins, you can see any admins that are currently assigned to the account, their current role, such as super admin, maybe a compliance admin if you do have the archiving product on. You can see their last login, and you can add additional admins by hitting the plus key. It is important to note that admins do not count towards a user count. However, you can have a subsequent user that is also an admin as well as a user. Here's where you put their email address, their password. Again, we do have a random password generator. Decide on the role. You could have done any of the given roles or a custom one as we've seen earlier. First name and last name are optional. Permissions. This is where you can add additional permissions or build custom permissions out in the system. So if we go ahead and add a test one here, hit the plus key. You can come down here and you can qualify pretty much anything you'd want an admin to do. So anything from viewing the quarantine messages, how would you like that done? None, just the headers, body, or a full preview. How to handle clean messages. And of course, each and every action can be controlled in here, such as administration, policies, users, spam, LDAP settings, reporting, audit logs. And you do have a wealth of options to give them, such as none. Can they just simply view? Can they edit? Or full control? That means they could delete or change major options. How they handle the quarantine report, allow and deny a listing from none to view or to full control. And if you do have the archiving component turned on, how you would like to view that, none or read only. Moving down to access control, you do have the ability for admins and end users to be restricted based off of IP. So if you don't want admins being able to access the account from anywhere in the world, from home, anywhere out, same thing for end users. Do you want to restrict certain IP ranges to allow them to only access their console from those IPs? Clicking on the audit logs gives you the ability to view a click-by-click action within the particular product. Basic's going to give you major actions. Advanced view is going to give you options of everything that was done in the product, click-by-click view. Coming down to the alerts tab, this is going to allow you to notify an administrator upon a high queue. So mail server's down, mail is spooling up, you certainly have the option to do that. Hit the plus key. Is it enabled? Yes or no? Alert on based on the status you set, over 10 messages, 50 messages, all configurable. Give it a description and add the particular users to the account. So it's important to note, make sure you provide a name. Make sure the email address is outside of the network. Great example is if your network's down, obviously you're not going to retrieve an email from there. Phone number, extremely important, so that way we can send a SMS text notification if there is an outage situation. And of course you can select both, which is probably the best practice. You'll get an email as well as a text message letting you know that mail is queuing up. Hit the save button when you're done and close. We're also able to do that same thing for virus detection as well. Under the Preferences tab, you can certainly control your time zone. Time zone is very important based off the criteria you've set in the daily quarantine. You want those messages to come in exactly when you've specified. You can also set your language preference at this point as well. Coming down to our last tab, our reporting tab here, click Scheduled Reports. This is where you can actually build out scheduled reports. Hit the plus key here. You'll have the option of having this enabled or disabled. Give the report a name, select a report type. Is it password protected? Decide what recipients are going to get that. Again, hitting the plus key will allow you to add any additional recipients as needed. The schedule, is that daily, weekly, monthly, or yearly? And you can send it at any point in the 24-hour day, as well as the time zone you'd like to be sent out at. You can simply save it or save it and run it at the moment. Thank you folks for joining us today on our VIPRE email security walkthrough for admins. Have a great day.